Good evening. Today I want to talk about a different subject which is global in nature. The world went through a great pandemic in 2021. Now looks like it is going to continue for the third year with a surge in Omicron. A group of 74 lower income countries, including Sri Lanka, decided not to take international aid but instead tap the global sovereign bond market because it was cheaper to raise money there. These 74 countries raised a lot of money abroad. I have discussed in Tamil in great detail about the problems in Sri Lanka. To recap, Sri Lanka has a major forex crisis. It has $11 billion in debt, of which $6 billion has to be repaid this year. Along with it, there are three major sources of forex earners for Sri Lanka. One is tea, two is the garment industry, and third, the biggest, is the tourism industry. What happened is, even before COVID, the Rajapaksa government decided that it would go organic. Agriculture collapsed, tea productions collapsed, and hence there was no earnings from agriculture. And prices of agricultural commodities also went up because they had to import more food articles. In this precarious time came the attack of COVID. COVID meant that garment industries were completely disrupted and garment exports dropped. But more importantly for Sri Lanka, it meant that there would be no tourism for 2 years in a row. And looks like it is going to extend to the third year that there is going to be no tourism. Because there has been no tourism for 3 years in a row, Sri Lanka lacks foreign exchange reserves. Also, it had borrowed a lot of money from China for infrastructure development. Even though the Chinese rent is not due, the Chinese interest payments are and principal payments are not due. Sri Lanka is in a precarious situation because it has to repay its bonds and service interest this year, and its reserves have dropped to less than $1 billion. Sri Lanka needs to import basic food commodities. It has to require import fuel and other basic necessities to survive. There is no forex, and Sri Lanka is in no position to do so. The Sri Lankan rupee has already depreciated by more than 20%. This has meant that inflation in Sri Lanka will be sky high, and also the rupee is now at 200, more than 200 rupees to the US dollar. Sri Lanka has no option but to go to the IMF for help, something which it swore it would never do. In fact, the brother of Mahinda Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa, the finance minister, came to India, met the authorities, and asked for an SOS loan. And India is silent. The world's poorest countries, including Sri Lanka, have to pay $11 billion in debt repayment this year. And the balance of this year, it is expected they have to pay nearly $35 billion. The other most vulnerable country is what I discussed, is Sri Lanka, where rating agencies have decided that unless the IMF comes to the help of Sri Lanka, there will be a default. The S&P in the global Standard and Poor's rating agency has downgraded the country's sovereign bond. Also, Ghana, El Salvador, Tunisia are also in serious trouble and may be facing default. The David Malpass, the World Bank president, said that extraction of resources by creditors meant that there could be a disorderly default in the market. This is something that happened in 1987. That is, banks have commercial banks and investors, private investors, have lent money to this group of 74 investors. When they press the button and try to extract their money back from the existing resources, then there would be a sovereign default risk will go up. And once there is a sovereign default, then the whole credit market in the world will jam up and will require action by various central bankers. These countries are now facing a resumption of debt repayments, which was supposed to be held back because of COVID, but exactly to coincide with the time that this debt repayment has commenced. is the Omicron virus, which makes sure countries like Sri Lanka have no resources to pay for them. So, this increase means that there reflects the fact that it was a wrong strategy on part of the developing economies like Sri Lanka to take on more debt to cope up with the economic and the healthcare impact of the coronavirus. And also, because of rising inflation, the cost of refinancing these existing loans is also going up. And the all government bilateral agencies have started resumption of repayments which were suspended, and countries were given a breather during the pandemic period. According to a report, 60% of all low income countries need to restructure their debt by the end of this year. And therefore, this is since it is not possible, there is a strong likelihood of a sovereign debt crisis. The countries which belong to low and middle income countries, every year from 2019, 2020, 2021, issued bonds worth $300 billion. This is more one third more than what they would do in a normal year. In the year 2020, 2021, they issued 300 and 300, $600 billion of debt instead of the usual $400 billion. So during the pandemic, this really rose because the world did not step in to give aid to the poor. In fact, countries like United States and Germany did not support vaccination of poor and low middle income countries. This is what has created the crisis. Thank you for watching. Be rich.
It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support.
For hot financial news reviews and economical updates, watch Be Rich. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel.